So, welcome everybody. I want to introduce you to my friend Adam Kramer. We kind of grew up together in the same circles. We met when we were really young, became really close friends in college, and he's here to tell you the story of chair to millionaire. How he went from selling a chair on Craigslist to having a multi-million-dollar company. And I thought this would encourage all you guys who are in the program and who might want to be in the program. So, Adam, can you tell us a story about how this whole thing started?
Yeah, sure. So the story starts about 10 years ago. My wife and I were about to get married, and I had a bachelor pad with some ugly furniture. And so she was like, this stuff's got to go. So I had a couple chairs, like a sofa, and I posted them on Craigslist, and somebody crazy just showed up with $500 cash and a truck and took away this nasty furniture. And the light bulb didn't like totally click at the time, but it was like, wow, I can't believe I just made $500 for selling some junk that I didn't want. And I'd always kind of had a knack for finding ways to make a little bit of money on the side here and there. So my wife and I got married about 10 years ago, and neither of us had work. She was still finishing up school. I had just started grad school, and it was like, okay, what can we do to make a little bit of money? And I felt like, listen, I'm young, I'm able-bodied, I'm fairly intelligent. Like, I should be able to start something for myself. And I turned down a couple job opportunities that just didn't seem right. I needed to make some cash, so I started selling insurance, and I freaking hated it. And I learned really quickly, I know how to sell stuff, but I'm not a salesman. There's a difference. Interestingly enough, the guy that I was working for in life insurance, he's like, yeah, I know you need to make a little bit of cash on the side. And he showed me around to a couple local auctions, and a few different surplus stores, where they sold stuff cheap. And it didn't take long, like a light bulb just switched on. And I was like, I'd buy a desk at a surplus store for, $20 and sell it for $100. Like, okay, made 5 times my money. Let me try that again. And my wife's really artistic, so we started buying like beat up furniture, and she would paint it all kinds of cool colors and designs and stuff. And the internet was our friend. We started posting stuff on Craigslist, and really quickly, like, I didn't even know what a picker was, but like, we were like American pickers. We'd go out there, we would find furniture. I didn't know styles. I didn't know design. I knew nothing other than like, buy a piece of furniture, make it look a little bit nicer. Somebody will give you a couple $100. So we did that for a year, and like turned it into a pretty cool local business where like we had a following. We weren't making like great money, but we didn't need a lot of money, and we made enough. We made enough that year. From there, we went overseas for a couple of years. And the whole time I was there, I was dreaming of the business back home and thinking like, okay, how can we do this better?
Yeah.
So we came back in summer of 2014 and hit the ground running. Like, the day we got back, I drove up to Michigan and bought a big box truck. I'd never driven a box truck. It scared the crap out of me. Like, every bridge we would go under, I would be like looking up, like, I'm terrified I'm going to smash into a bridge, And I bought a truck. I went to an auction in Chicago, bought a ton of furniture. I didn't even have a place to store it yet. So I've got this huge truck parked in my driveway full of furniture, for like a week and a half until I could find a warehouse that I rented. And we had a little baby at the time. So like, my wife was no longer really going to be able to help. So like, the first day I went to this huge warehouse, well, it felt huge to me. It was like 3,000 or 4,000 square feet. And I thought, I'll never be able to fill this. And my mom came that day and helped me unload all this furniture into this warehouse. And it's like humble beginnings, and, I would say we had like we had like $3,000 to our name. Okay. When we started this thing, bought a bunch of this furniture cheap, cleaned it up, started posting it on Craigslist, and people started buying stuff. Like,
So I gotta stop you
yeah,
here. So far, you started a business you knew nothing about. You didn't know about furniture. You didn't know about designs. You
nothing.
said
Like,
you
I
didn't
didn't grow
know.
I didn't grow up in like, that wasn't a part of my upbringing. Like, I didn't know styles, I didn't know names, I didn't know brands. Like, I knew what a dresser was, I knew what a bed was.
Right, right.
Like, you know, um, so, and I didn't even really, like, to be honest with you, like, now I have some resource books and things, but I didn't study it. I just got out there, and you start rubbing shoulders with people that know more than you, and you ask questions. I'd go to these auctions up in Chicago a lot, and hey, like, I'm so confused. Like, this dresser just sold for $1,000 at an auction. Like, I would try to sell that for $300. What am I missing? And they'd say, oh, well, this is this particular brand, or this is this designer. This is really like high end stuff, you know? So you just, like, the one thing I do have is a really good memory. So I just, like, now I have this crazy catalog in my brain of just knowledge of, like, okay, these things are worth this much money, and let me go find those things. I do feel like I lucked out in the sense of it. There's a low barrier of entry really to a lot of businesses, but to furniture, it's like people are dying every day, sadly, but like, that's the reality of the world. So there's estate sales. There's so many places where people have nice furniture and they just want to get rid of it. Like, you're doing them a favor to haul away heavy furniture. So, and there are a lot of auctions that, like, that's what they do. They've got, you know, a whole house worth of furniture and jewelry and everything that they're selling. And so I just started consistently going to those things like that. That's a big part of it too, is like, I didn't, like, it wasn't like, oh, let me do this part-time, or let me just go whenever I feel like it. It was like at least every 2 weeks I was going to a big auction and buying whatever I could get my hands on.
My dad would see you at some of those auctions.
Yeah. So, you know, in the process, I was learning what's desirable, and it really was a very incremental growth process, where it was like, okay, I'm going to take a risk on this one. Like, I'm used to selling dressers for $300, but I'm going to pay $400 for this one and try to sell it for $1,000. And, you know, over time, got a little better at it, started learning a little more of what people wanted. And yeah, fast forward about a year, it was like the summer of 2015, a buddy of mine came to visit, and I've got this warehouse jam-packed full of furniture, and he shows up and he's just like, what is going on here? And I rolled out this rug. That was a nice rug. And these people are there to look at this rug, and they hand me $1,500 for this rug. And he's just like, what? Because he also didn't know anything about furniture or the business at all. And he was just like, what is going on here? Like, you know, what have you gotten yourself into? And so he was moving back to the area, and he's like, let's do this thing together. And so now there's two of us working full time, kind of trying to figure this thing out together. And, you know, with one person, I'm moving furniture around by myself. I'm trying to do the book work. I'm trying to do the pictures and posting and everything. With two people, you can just do so much more.
Yeah.
So, you know, really quickly when he came on, we moved from like a 4,000 square foot building to a 12,000 square foot building. And the only thing that sucked about that building was that it was on the second floor, and everything had to go up a huge ramp. So like, we're hauling all this super heavy furniture up and down this ramp.
But you don't need a gym membership anymore.
We didn't need a membership. Like,
You're saving money.
You know, and he was a good friend. So it was like, the funny thing about this whole journey for me is I hardly ever felt like I was working. Like, and I was doing really heavy labor, like lifting heavy furniture, but I was building something for myself and for my family. And I just really loved that. It's still fun to me. Like, it's fun work. So we're doing this thing together. And the next big like barrier, we're selling everything, we're in South Bend, Indiana, not like a super affluent community. People appreciate good furniture, but they like the Midwest, we appreciate cheap stuff really. So we started selling higher and higher end stuff, and we opened a retail store. But over time, it was like people would come in looking for the $200 dresser that we used to sell, and now it's like a $1,500 dresser. People would scoff at that, or like, "You guys, what are you guys trying to do here?" So we realized at some point we need to harness the power of the internet, because we need
Right.
to get our product out there, and we didn't know how to do that. Like I would see all these people selling furniture on Etsy, but I didn't know. Okay, somebody buys this, but they're in California. How do we get this to them? So shipping was like the next big barrier. But we posted all of our stuff on a couple different online platforms. Some of them handled the shipping for us. We got to know different shipping companies. Like, again, you're just picking it up as you go, and you realize there's this huge network of big to one-man crew shipping companies that are going all across the US all the time.
Right.
So we kind of started building that network just naturally. Like, again, we didn't force anything. Hey, we sold this dresser. It's going to, Oregon. How do we get it there? We'd meet we'd call around, figure out who can get it there. And then we'd say, hey, well, if we sell anything out West next time, will you take it for us? Yeah, sure. And so we figured out what the rates were and kind of all that. It just didn't take very long for it to boom, to the point where we realized the local retail for us was dying and the money was all online. And we didn't have to work as hard in the sense of like the retail store was open on Saturdays. Neither of us, we had families. We didn't want to work on Saturdays. So we went from being open 6 days a week to like cutting it to 4 and then 3 and then 2 and then 1. And then we closed our doors, and we're like, people can make an appointment if they want to come, but we're just going to sell online.
Yeah. Was that a tough decision for you to shut down? Because a lot of people would be like, that was our baby, right?
Yeah, I felt that way a little bit, in the sense of like, I'm from the area, so it felt like we were like a cool place. Like we provided a cool service to the community here. The service is a weird word, but like people need furniture and they like to come look at cool furniture. And a lot of people liked working with us, but it just didn't make sense anymore. There was one point where we had all this really nice stuff. So we started putting big labels on it in the store, like, please don't touch this. This is expensive. And so it just really turned off people when they would come in. They're like, all your stuff says don't touch, or, be careful, around it. And so the writing was kind of on the wall. Like, this doesn't work for the local community. This doesn't really work for us. So yeah, eventually we ended up building all these huge racks like Costco. Cause that was the other thing. Like we're stuck in this space. How can we maximize this space? So we built racks up to the ceiling so we could have 4 tiers, stack furniture basically 4 levels high. And we could get a lot more stuff that way. We brought on a third partner about 3 or so years ago. And it's the same idea. Like with 2 of us, we could do so much. With 3 of us, we could do a whole lot more. And so we ended up completely filling that space. It was like, again, like 12,000 square feet stacked to the ceiling on these pallet racks. And, we had to make a decision, are we going to stay here? Or are we going to try to keep expanding? The other part of the business, I guess, to back up, furniture, you buy used furniture. It's all used furniture. So none of this is new stuff. It comes in various conditions, right? Like some stuff's completely beat up. Some stuff needs to be like tossed in a bonfire. But some things look really bad, but they can be restored. So we started trying to network locally with local restoration companies. And we happened to go to this guy in Elkhart, and we brought him a couple dressers and said, "Hey, what would you charge us to refinish these?" And it was so expensive. He's like, $1,500 for this one. And we left, and that was like more than we would sell the piece for. So
Right.
we left that day, and my partner said, "This is dumb. I'm going to learn how to refinish furniture," which, if you know anything about refinishing furniture, that's like kind of a dumb statement to say. That's like, I'm going to go learn how to dunk a basketball. Like, well, you either can, or you
Right.
can't. It's really hard. Like, that would be a business that has a very high barrier to entry because it
Right.
takes years and a certain skill set. But he was like a bulldog, and he got on YouTube. He started studying. He made a bunch of mistakes, ruined some furniture. We had some fights, and he started getting to like a basic level proficiency, because some people refinish furniture out of their garage. It's not great, but like you can do it, right? So he got to like that basic level proficiency, to the point where we decided, okay, as a business, we're going to invest in him now in that skill set. So we sent him to some classes where he learned even more about it. And then we ended up renting a space at a different building that had a spray booth, which would be like a more professional setup. And he got to the point where, we were doing a pretty professional job refinishing. And that kind of revolutionized our business, because you could buy something really cheap because it's really beat up, and then you can make it pristine with your labor and your skill, and then you can sell it for, a much better profit. So, we went that route, and the whole thing just kept snowballing. Like, nothing happened quickly, but we realized we need our own setup now. We found another building about a mile from our previous spot. It was like the worst month of my life. We moved, I don't know, a few million pounds of furniture, it was like right as COVID hit. So there were a lot of people not working at the time. So we were able to hire a few friends, like, "Hey, this is the worst job ever, but come help us." Like, we would take the furniture off the racks, tear the racks down, move the racks to the new building, put the racks up, put the furniture back on, like for a
Jeez.
month straight, like 12-hour days. And we got moved over here. Now we're in like 30,000 square feet, and we were able to install a really professional grade spray booth. So we've got it all set up here, and now we have 3 full-time refinishers. There's a total of 7 of us on staff. So there's like, I kind of run the buying, like buying and customer service kind of side. And then another one of my business partners runs the refinishing side. And in tandem, it's kind of like 2 separate businesses. It's all under one umbrella though. And like in tandem, it's a really good business. And it's not something, this isn't like, I guess what I would say about the whole story is I never set out necessarily with this in mind. It was just, let me get a little bit better every day.
Yeah.
And I feel like, like it was a combination of working hard. There was some luck involved. But like just being consistent and every day trying to learn a little bit more and take another step forward. Like, the reality is we really started up this business, like ramped it up, in 2015, and what we've been able to accomplish in 6 years is pretty crazy. Like,
It's amazing.
To go from nothing and just a box truck full of furniture that we bought on day one to like this
Well,
huge
starting with a bunch of couches that you already own.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like 6 years, in total 10 years from, I guess, when we started, but this version of the business is about 6 years old, and to go, from nothing to like a really thriving business. Like, I'm amazed looking back on the journey of how it played out. It's been awesome. And in the process, because we kind of grew it the right way, like we were just able to attract the right kind of people that wanted to work for us. And we paid everyone really well and just like, hey, come be a part of this thing. And so we like have a really great environment that everyone likes working here. We really get along well. And we're all, I guess, we all have the same goal in mind. You know, we're just trying to do the best that we can, provide a great service to our customers. And overwhelmingly, we have great responses from our customers, great reviews, that we put out a really good product. So yeah, it's been a journey. And we're still troubleshooting, like, or thinking, how can we grow? How can we get better at what we do? Like, that's never going to stop. But we're definitely at a point where it's like a business that is humming along, I guess I would say.
Right. There's so much gold. I didn't want to interrupt you and like talk, because there's so many just pieces of gold that, but one of my mentor back in the day said, you can't be in business until you're in business. Right.
Yep.
You can't learn how to go to an auction and talk to people unless you just go and do it.
Right.
You can't. Right. So my favorite thing about your story, which I'd never heard all that, was that you just went and did it. Right. You like to learn stuff. I mean, I'd say that's like a primary thing for someone in business. You love to learn.
Right.
You know, but even when you said you brought in your partner and you didn't know, you started, you did it, and you learned. Right. And I think that's where most people, I'd say with the things that I know now from working with so many people in business, that's probably the thing that stops most people is, I just don't know. I don't know. Well, like, get out there and learn. Right.
Yeah.
And then the line is always Google it.
Right.
You mentioned earlier, learn how to clean up a whole like beautiful piece of furniture on YouTube. I mean, come on, the information's out there.
Right. That's what I think. Like, our generation was taught, if there's anything to know, you've got to go to a class or a school to learn about that thing. And that's pretty ingrained, but like, there's so much gold out there. I mean, just get on YouTube, just get on Twitter. Like, there are people who are experts in their field who are freely sharing knowledge, and they benefit from it. Like, if they've got a great YouTube channel, they get to monetize that, as they should, but it's out there, free content. So yeah, I mean, I look back and, you know, a friend of mine, pretty early on, he was like, man, I would never have the guts to just like start a business like you did. Like, he had a good career, good benefits. And I just felt like, there was no better choice for me. Like, it just made sense for me. Like, no, because the one thing that he didn't have is he wasn't building something for himself. He was building something for someone else. And I understand not everybody's an entrepreneur. Not everybody wants, some people want just the clock in, clock out. And that's not my job hasn't been clock in, clock out. There's a lot of extra work. But I feel like in the long run, there's a ton of freedom now too. Like, I get to set my hours. I get to do what I want. This is no one is over my shoulder, no boss saying do this or do that. Like, I'm accountable to myself and to my coworkers now and to my family, but like, we're building something that is what we want to build and what we chose for ourselves. And to me, that's pretty cool.
Right. And like you said earlier, I mean, it wasn't work. You were enjoying it. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of this thing. Like, I don't remember many times enjoying clocking in to a 9 to 5. So it was work for me.
Right.
But now that we've launched out our own businesses, it's just, I cannot wait to get back in and start building.
Right. Definitely.
So how did COVID affect you? Because you're online, were people, I mean, my question is, were people actually even buying more stuff since they were at home?
Yeah. So it was crazy. I remember, when everything hit and there were the shutdowns coming, and I just told my wife, like, this is going to cost us a ton of money. Like, the economy is going to tank. I was just kind of like feeling doomsday about it. But like, thankfully, we were already online. So I think if we were just a brick and mortar store, like a lot of people were at the time, it's like you're scrambling to figure out how to get online, but we were already there. So there was like a month where it was dead. And like, the auctions that we were going to buy had all shut down, and like everything was in limbo. And then, some of that stimulus money got sent out, and people kind of like, exhaled, and then the money just started flowing. And we actually had our best sales year in 2020, and continuing on to this year, for a lot of reasons. People were stuck at home and they wanted to improve their homes. Now you're having all these COVID related supply chain issues. So if you go to order a new piece of furniture, they might, West Elm or Crate and Barrel, they might say, well, it'll be 6 months till we can get you that. Well, the furniture that we have, we can get it to you within a couple of weeks. And so you have designers or customers that need it now, and that helps our business as well. So on the whole, the vintage and antique furniture industry is really booming right now. So that's not what I expected, but we'll take it.
Right. And so you mentioned even partnering with friends. Like that's in the world of business, that's considered a no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like never partner with a friend. I almost want to do I almost want you to do a whole training on how to do business partnerships the right way. Cause I've had my own and they've been bad, but I've learned a lot.
Yeah. So, the first partner that I brought on was one of my very closest friends, and we sat down with a tax professional. And he said, "Are you sure you guys want to do this?" He tried to talk us out of it. He was like, he was a big Dave Ramsey guy. He's like, Dave says, don't do business with your friends. It's going to be a disaster. And I would say we had a unique friendship. But we just made it work. Like you get everything spelled out legally, like the ownership structure is all there so that it's clear. But from there, it was like, we both were just trying to build something, and we both had different skill sets. So that worked really well. Like I liked getting out there and picking and learning about the furniture. He liked running the books and managing the business side, and we had complete trust in each other. So I didn't need to see every last dime in the books, because I knew he was trustworthy,
Right.
So I wouldn't say just willy-nilly go into business with anybody out there, or even suggest that it's a great idea for everyone to go into business with a friend. We just made it work really well. And again, the trust was there. So never had any issues. I mean, we fought. We always kind of talked about it like this is a marriage. Like, you're with each other 5-6 days a week. You're gonna fight. You're gonna disagree about things. But in the end, if you have the same goal in mind, like we're not ever angry with each other. We're like trying to. It's the growing pains of growing a business.
Right.
So for me, it worked out really well. And now there's 7 of us, and five of us have been close friends for years. So that's pretty cool. That these guys felt like what I had started was something that they wanted to be a part of. But just that we get to hang out every day, and we're working, but we're also sharing life together. And that's been a pretty unique experience for me, and something I've really enjoyed.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a million things I want you to talk for hours on, but maybe another time.
Yeah.
But like, if you were to say to these young or even older, it depends on what you think young is, aspiring entrepreneurs, the whole idea is you go from aspiring entrepreneur to actually just being an entrepreneur. What would you say are like the 3 big steps or 3 big pieces that they need to be able to go from aspiring to just being?
Yeah. So I think we've already kind of touched on this a little bit, but I think first of all, you've got to be a go-getter and like be willing to take that first step. Like, I think that's the hardest part. Like we've said is, am I willing to step out, and that doesn't always mean quit your job and like from day one, like you can start a side hustle or whatever. I mean, for me, that's kind of what it was at the beginning, but you got to be willing to, motivate yourself and step out. I think you have to be willing to, at the end of the day, it's about consistent hard work. So if you want to just clock in and clock out, it's not going to work. Like when work needs to be done, the buck stops with you. So,
right.
Which I've enjoyed that responsibility. But again, I don't feel like anything I did was rocket science or I made any amazing decisions. I just showed up every day. And then I think the ability to see into the future a little bit and like, okay, here's where I am, here's where I'm trying to get to. You know, I think about like, I wanted to get online. I know that I want to get online. Let's develop a plan for figuring out how to do that. So I think, you know, it's like all these things apply to just life in general, but like take that first step, work hard consistently, and then set some goals and figure out a few measurables of how you can get there. Like now, all those things are just kind of on autopilot for me. Like, it's not like every day I'm thinking, what's my goal for tomorrow? Let me write that down. I kind of just know where I'm headed and working towards that. But there were definitely times early on where it's like, okay, there's this next big step. Let me figure out how do you get there? And the thing is, like, you know, there are so many resources. Like, there are so many people who have started small businesses, and anyone listening to this recording probably knows a handful of those people, right? So obviously yourself too, Josh, like, you're a resource. So I didn't do this alone, and no one is actually alone in starting a small business. Like, there's so much out there in terms of resources and opportunity. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's funny. I just finished writing up a free guide called 3 Secrets to Start Your Own Business, you know, and it has to do with a lot of things you've touched on, but underneath there's a bonus section to start your own business, your own side hustle. And it's selling furniture. And that's why I reached out to you, because I was like, this is Adam's story. You know, just find something in your house, sell it on Craigslist, and get started. When you start making that money, you start seeing that that's possible. Yeah. And so I forget who it was, you know, said, hey, you want to make $100? Sell this. You want to make $1 million? Sell that 1 million times. I mean, it's really, it's just business is business. It's not as daunting as everybody thinks it is. It's we create that fear. We create that in our heads. We need to get over that and get moving. Right. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, it's developing a different mentality too. Like I'm to the point now where the thought of clocking in and clocking out, or what's my hourly wage, like that, I never want to go back to that. Right. You know, cause it's, what's your worth? 50,000 a year. That's your worth. No. Yeah. You have your own thing. Your worth is infinite. Right. You're going to put a cap on that. And then you're going to say, well, every year we'll raise it, you know, 2% or whatever, you know, like that. Again, I'm not going to say that entrepreneurship is for everyone. Like, I'm not criticizing people who have jobs like that. I just, once I got a taste for this kind of freedom, I was like, I can't imagine ever going back. Sorry, this thing has been bugging me for an hour. Hugo, sorry. I'm going to take care of this thing once and for all. I mean, I just think that people have so much more potential than what we've been taught, right? So you think, you know, when I started making a little more money in this than I did in previous careers, I thought, wow, this is amazing. Like, I never thought that I would be worth that much, you know, or that I could make that much. And that's kind of sad looking back. It's like, why didn't I think that I, you know, could make a living? You know, I just people dumber than us, Adam, are making way more money than us. Right. Well, I don't recommend this industry, but I just watched a documentary about some drug dealers in Miami, and they were both high school dropouts who started this $1 billion cocaine ring in Miami. And not a great product, but I was really awestruck by their go get 'em mentality. Yeah. And that's the thing too, is the school system doesn't, and I'm big into this because I also have the nonprofit that helps young people figure out what career is perfect for them before they jump into college, spend millions of dollars on something they're never going to use. But the school system is set up for you to learn, these are the steps to get in the system for you to be a good person out there in the world. And you go do be this, a good little citizen, and pat you on the head. And here's your, a little bit of Social Security at the end of your life. And And hopefully
Yeah,
you don't outlive your retirement.
right. And that's the thing too. Like, so I really enjoy my work, so I keep coming to work, and it's not like I'm sitting on a huge pile of cash that I could just retire today, but like I see the path forward for me to decide for myself what my future is, versus a lot of careers where it's like, well, I'm a slave for 40 years to this career, and then they're going to let me, live out the rest of my life. But I've like, not that you've wasted it, but like you, you gave up your healthiest younger years, to an industry, to a career. And then, what you have left is what you have left. And that doesn't sound great to
Right.
me. So, you know, again, I don't know what the future holds, but I, I don't, I know that I don't need to work at this rate for the next 30, 40 years if I don't want to.
Right.
And the nice thing about small businesses too, like I can pass my skill set on to someone else and have others grow this business, someday, and I can still reap some rewards from that. I mean, I've got 4 sons, so right now at least they think it's like super cool if they can like help daddy with his furniture business. I don't know if when they're a little bit older if they'll still think that's cool, but like that's a cool thought for me too. Like I could build something that I could actually pass on to my kids someday if that's something they want to do.
Yeah. Just the whole idea that your life is in your hands. And I think that's what the whole system has kept people from mentally being able to go there. My life is in my college's hands. And if it
Right.
doesn't work out afterwards, then it's the college's fault. Well, now my life
Yeah.
is, it's just perpetuating this mindset of someone else is going to take care of me forever. And it's been around for hundreds of years.
Right. Yeah. And, I'm sure you deal with this a lot, but I don't use my college degree at all anymore. It's not to say that I'm not thankful for the education that I got, but I was one of the few fortunate who was able to graduate college with no debt. But I think I would have a very different perspective on that experience if I had graduated with a pile of debt. So, I feel like I'll give you another quick story. Our head refinisher, he's an immigrant from Mexico. He's been in the U.S. for about 30 years and doesn't have a college degree, very little formal training. He moved to California about 30 years ago, and he learned how to refinish pianos.
Wow.
And he did that for years and years, and now he's got a great job with us refinishing furniture. I think a lot of the world would look down on somebody who knows how to work with their hands, rather than have the degrees to prove that they're
Right.
supposedly so smart. He's a genius. Like
Right.
he can do things that like literally 99.99% of the population cannot do. It's like an art form, and for years, I think his skill set was underutilized and underappreciated, because it's all about, well, what degrees do you have? And I think that this upcoming generation and kind of into the future is what can you do? What can you do? I don't care where you graduated from or, what you say about yourself or what your resume says, like, show me what you can do. And so I think there will be a resurgence of the trade skills. I mean, as an aside, every time I have to hire a plumber, it's like $400 or $500, and I start doing the math. These guys make really good money. Like,
Right.
they come to me for a half hour or an hour, and I'm writing them a big fat check, and I'm thinking, man, they do that like 5 to 10 times a day.
Right.
So I'm thinking, man, am I in the wrong business?
Right.
Um, so, I just think there's a lot of opportunity out there that doesn't always, that isn't in the forefront because it's, well, you got to go to college and you got to, get a white collar job or whatever. And that isn't the path to the most success. It isn't the path to the most money, ironically, necessarily. So, I think that's something to look at for younger people these days.
Yeah. It's funny you brought up plumbing. That's one of my main that's one of the stories that I tell is just go buy yourself a clean out machine. You're gonna go in debt, right? You're gonna have $6,000 in debt with a van and this
Yep.
machine, but you're gonna make $800 a day. It takes
Yep.
a half hour to an hour to clean someone's drains out. You just
Yep.
take that thing, snake it down, and
Yep.
now you've got this huge business, and it's already paid off in 3-4 weeks of just
Yep.
hardcore work.
Yep.
But yeah, there's so many ways to make money, and there are ways to make money that we haven't even discovered yet. People
Right.
don't even know yet, and it's
Right.
just really neat to see these entrepreneurs continuing to learn
Right.
more. Like, hey, but if you have that mindset, I can make money doing this, then maybe it's time to just go for it. You know, if people are thinking like that, maybe it's just I'm gonna just do it. Let's see how much money I can make in this way. That's the entrepreneurial instinct, I think.
Yeah. And you bring up like there's ways to make money that we haven't even considered yet. I find that interesting because, you know, when we were really little, Josh, the internet didn't exist.
Right.
So the concept that we would be on a phone call or on a video call right now over the internet was like not a thing, let alone I'm going to sell furniture on this, you know, magical web of communication and then ship it to people. Like we were still ordering out of catalogs. Right. So I think, you know, that's the exciting thing is like, you know, for young people, there are new technologies and new things that will continue to move forward. And a lot of times those things are promoted quicker on the internet than they are in our college classrooms, right? Colleges, if you're going to go study, you know, graphic design, well, they might be teaching you what people did 5 years ago, because that's what the textbooks say. And then you go out to get a job and they're like, well, you're not using the most recent, you know, coding or whatever. So again, I just think it's a different age now. There's so much information out there. And colleges are not always going to be the most up to date on that type of stuff.
Right. It's true, especially in what we found is in business. You know, we're learning business from these professors who have never owned a business. They're just reading books that other people have read or written and trying to pass that information on to you.
That's part of my story. So my first business partner, my good friend who joined me, he had one job opportunity. He was either going to come work for me or he was going to get hired by a school corporation that wanted him to teach entrepreneurship. And he had never started a business. He had a degree in business. And he was like, I can't go teach people what I haven't done myself, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, that was literally it. He was like, he signed on initially. He said, I'll work with you for 2 years because I need to learn how to start a business before I can teach other people how to start a business. And he lasted longer than that because we had a lot of fun and we were making money and we grew this thing, you know? But I just found that interesting. Like he got offered a job to teach small business and he had never run or started a small business. Very interesting.
I mean, right away.
Yep.
It's crazy. All right, man. So we should close this up. We're running up to an hour. But is there anything you want to just sign off with? Any other last nuggets of gold that you'd like to pass down?
Man, I think I've given all the gold already. No, I just, you know, whoever's watching this, like, I just really encourage you, like, yeah, it sounds like a nice little American dream story. There was a lot of hard work involved, but I wouldn't have had it any other way. Like, I truly love what I do. I love the group that I work with. And if you have an idea, like, don't be the guy who 10, 20 years later is like, I wish I had tried that out. Like, what was the worst that could have happened to me? My business fell apart in 6 months and I go back to a job. Like, fine. Okay.
Right.
You know, but it doesn't really matter how old you are. Like, you can devote 6 months or a year to an idea. And, you know, I've failed a lot in this business and I failed on my way up, if that makes sense. Like, I failed and then I learned something from it. And I took something from that experience and kept moving forward. So your first start at a business might not become the $1 million business. And that's fine. You know, try something else. But you know, the best encouragement is just to take that first step. And I'm really glad that I did.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate you. And we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
I think back, like, when you sold your first share from your house, and now you look back at that and think, how in the world am I here right now?
Yeah. It definitely wasn't just a straight line. Lots of bumps and, lots of figuring things out along the way, but we've come a long way.
That's awesome.